1,000. There comes a moment in life when you realize that not every emotion deserves a reaction, not every opinion deserves a response, and not every situation deserves your energy. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to remain calm, composed, and unshaken. Even when life tries to disturb your peace, to act as if nothing bothers you does not mean you feel nothing. It means you have learned the art of emotional mastery. It means you understand that your peace is more valuable than winning every argument, explaining every misunderstanding, or proving yourself to everyone. True power lies in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Many people allow external circumstances to control their inner world. A careless comment, a critical voice, or an unfair situation can instantly disturb their mood and confidence. But emotional strength is built when you decide that other people's actions will not define your emotional state. When you choose calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, and dignity over impulsive reactions, you take control of your life. Boundaries play a crucial role in this journey. Acting unbothered is not about ignoring problems, but about deciding what deserves your attention and what does not. Boundaries protect your time, energy, and emotional space. They allow you to say no without guilt and to walk away without explanation. When you set boundaries, you send a message that your well-being is not negotiable. There will always be people who misunderstand you, judge you, or try to provoke you. You cannot control their behavior, but you can control your response. Every time you refuse to react to negativity, you weaken its power. Every time you choose peace over conflict, you strengthen your inner resilience. Acting unbothered also teaches self-respect. It reminds you that your worth does not depend on approval, validation, or approval, or constant attention. You do not need to prove your value to people who do not see it. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence, and the most courageous decision is distance. Emotional strength is not built overnight. It is developed through repeated choices. Choosing not to argue. Choosing not to explain. Choosing not to absorb negativity. Choosing to protect your peace. Over time, these choices transform you into someone who is grounded, confident, and emotionally independent. When you master your emotions and boundaries, you 136,000. You begin to live differently. You stop reacting to everything and start responding with wisdom. You stop allowing others to control your mood. You can start controlling your own narrative. You lie fine. Realize that peace is not something you find, but something you create. So act as if nothing bothers you, not because you are indifferent, but because you are intentional. Not because you are cold, but because you are conscious. And not because you do not care, but because you care enough about yourself to protect your peace. Emotional strength comes from controlling reactions, not suppressing feelings, because true strength is not about pretending that emotions do not exist, but about learning how to understand them, manage them, and express them wisely. When we suppress our feelings, We push them deep inside where they silently grow, shaping our thoughts, our behavior, and even our health. Suppressed emotions do not disappear. They wait for moments of weakness to surface in harmful ways, sometimes as anger, sometimes sadness, sometimes as anxiety or bitterness. But when we learn to control our reactions, we acknowledge what we feel without letting those feelings control our actions. We create a healthy balance between the heart and the mind. Every human being experiences pain, disappointment, fear, and hope. These emotions are natural and meaningful. They tell us what matters to us, what hurts us, and what inspires us. But problems arise when emotions take over our decisions, when a single moment of anger destroys relationships, fear stops us from pursuing dreams, or when sadness makes us believe that we are powerless. Emotional strength means pausing before reacting. Breathing before speaking and thinking before acting. It means giving yourself the space to feel without allowing feelings to become destructive forces. Controlling reactions does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means choosing responses that reflect wisdom rather than impulse. When someone hurts you, your first reaction may be to fight back, to shout, or to withdraw completely. But emotional strength invites you to step back and ask yourself what response will protect your dignity and peace. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes it is honesty, and sometimes it is walking away. Each choice requires awareness and courage. Suppressing feelings often leads to emotional exhaustion. People who constantly hide their pain may appear strong on the surface, but inside they feel lonely and misunderstood. They carry invisible burdens that weigh heavily on their hearts over time. This suppression can lead to loss, a self-identity, because they no longer understand what they truly feel or need. Emotional strength, on the other hand, allows you to accept your emotions without shame, to recognize them as part of your humanity, and to use them as guides rather than chains. When you control your reactions, you take responsibility for your emotional world instead of blaming others for how you feel. You realize that while you cannot control what happens to you, you can control how you respond to it. This realization is empowering. It shifts you from being a victim of circumstances to being the author of your own story. You stop reacting automatically and start responding consciously with intention and clarity. This kind of strength is built through practice. It grows when you choose patience over rage, understanding over judgment, and self-respect over impulsive revenge. It develops when you allow yourself to feel sadness without drowning in it, when you acknowledge anger without letting it become cruelty. And when you experience joy without fearing its loss, each time you choose balance over extremes, you strengthen your emotional resilience. Emotional strength also deepens relationships. When you control your reactions, you communicate more honestly and compassionately. You listen instead of interrupting. You express feelings instead of attacking, and you resolve conflicts in a escalating them. The 106,000. People feel safer around you because they know you respond with maturity rather than volatility. This does not make you weak. It makes you trustworthy and grounded. Ultimately, emotional strength is not about eliminating emotions, but about mastering them. It is about feeling deeply while acting wisely. The London about being sensitive without being fragile, and about being powerful without being harsh. When you learn to control your reactions instead of suppressing your feelings, you discover a quiet strength within yourself, a strength that does not depend on external validation, a strength that remains calm in chaos, and a strength that allows you to move through life with grace and confidence and inner peace. Boundaries are essential to protect peace, energy, and self-respect. Because without boundaries, life becomes a constant struggle between what we feel and what others expect from us. Many people believe that saying yes to everything is kindness. But over time, they discover that unlimited access to their time, emotions, and resources slowly drains their spirit. Now, laundered boundaries are not walls that isolate us from others. They are bridges that define how we want to be treated and how we choose to engage with the world. When boundaries are absent, people often feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and undervalued. They give too much, listen, too much, tolerate too much, and sacrifice too much until their own needs become invisible. This is not because they lack strength, but because they fear rejection, conflict, or misunderstanding. Yet true peace does not come from pleasing everyone. It comes from on yourself, bounding yourself, that our well-being is not selfish. It is necessary. Energy is one of the most precious resources we possess. Every conversation, every obligation, and every emotional connection requires energy. When we allow people to constantly demand our attention, we lose the ability to focus on our dreams, goals, and inner growth. Boundaries help us decide where our energy should flow and where it should stop. And they allow us to invest our time in meaningful relationships and purposeful actions rather than endless emotional battles and unnecessary drama. Self-respect is deeply connected to boundaries. When you allow others to disrespect you, interrupt you, or manipulate you, 36,000, you silently teach them that your limits do not matter. But when you clearly express what is acceptable and what is not, you send a powerful message about worth. Your worth, self-respect is not about arrogance or superiority. It is about recognizing your value and refusing to accept treatment that diminishes. And that boundaries become the language through which self-respect speaks. Many people struggle to set boundaries because they fear being labeled as rude, distant, or selfish. But boundaries are not about rejecting people. They are about defining relationships in healthy ways. When you set boundaries, you create clarity. People know what to expect from you and what you expect from them. This clarity reduces confusion, resentment, and emotional pain. Relationships built on clear boundaries are often stronger and more honest than those built on silent sacrifices. Boundaries also protect emotional health. Without boundaries, we absorb other people's emotions, problems, and negativity as if they were our own. We carry burdens that do not belong to us and feel responsible for fixing everyone. But emotional maturity teaches us that we can care without carrying. That we can support without losing ourselves. Boundaries allow us to empathize without being consumed, to love without being controlled, and to help out without being drained. Setting boundaries is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous practice. Each day, we face situations that test our limits. Sometimes we must say no to invitations. Sometimes we must distance ourselves from toxic people. And sometimes we must speak up when silence feels easier. So, every time we choose to honor our boundaries, we strengthen our inner voice. We learn to trust ourselves more deeply, and we become less afraid of losing people who do not respect our limits. Peace is not found in avoiding conflict. It is found in choosing what is worth our energy. Boundaries help us for experiences, relationships, and responsibilities. They teach us that not everything deserves our reaction. Our actions, not everyone deserves our access, and not every situation deserves our involvement. When we understand this, we stop fighting unnecessary battles and start building a life aligned with our values. In the end, boundaries are acts of courage. They require honesty, clarity, and strength, but they reward us with peace, balance, and dignity. When we protect our peace, manage our energy wisely, and uphold our self-respect through boundaries, we do not become distant from the world. We become more connected to our true selves. And from that place of self-awareness, we create relationships and experiences that are not draining, but deeply fulfilling and meaningful. Silence and distance can be powerful responses to negativity, because not every situation requires confrontation, and not every voice deserves an answer. Many people believe that strength lies in arguing back, proving a point, or defending themselves in every conflict. But true emotional wisdom often lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to stay and when to step away. Silence and distance are not signs of weakness. They are signs of clarity, self-control, and inner strength. Negativity often feeds on reaction. It thrives on emotional responses, angers, and frustration. When you respond immediately to criticism, gossip, or provocation, you give negativity exactly what it seeks. But when you choose silence, you remove its fuel. Silence disrupts the cycle of conflict. It creates space between your emotions and the situation, allowing you to regain control of your thoughts and actions. Distance works in a similar way. Sometimes the healthiest response is not to argue or explain, but to create physical or emotional space. Distance protects your peace when words cannot. It allows you to step away from toxic environments, draining relationships, and repetitive conflicts by choosing distance. You acknowledge that your well-being is more important than in every battle. This decision does not mean you do not care. You not care. It means you care enough about yourself to avoid unnecessary harm. Silence also gives you time to understand your emotions. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause and reflect. You ask yourself what you truly feel and what response aligns with your values. This pause transforms emotional chaos into emotional intelligence. It helps you separate temporary feelings from long-term decisions in silence. You regain your power because you are no longer controlled by external noise. Distance helps you see situations more clearly. When you are constantly immersed in negativity, it becomes difficult to recognize how deeply it affects you. Stepping back allows you to observe patterns, behaviors, and dynamics from From a broader perspective, you begin to understand which relationships nourish you and which ones drain you. This awareness is essential for personal growth and emotional stability. Many people fear silence and distance because they worry about being misunderstood or judged. They feel pressure to explain themselves, to justify their choices, or to maintain connections at all costs. But emotional maturity teaches us that not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone will understand our boundaries. And not everyone needs to remain in our lives. Choosing silence and distance is not about abandoning others. It is about refusing to abandon yourself. Silence also carries dignity. When you do not respond to insults or provocation, you demonstrate self-respect. You show that your identity is not defined by others' opinions. This kind of silence is not empty. It is full of confidence. It communicates that you are secure enough not to engage in meaningless conflict. In many cases, silence speaks louder than words ever could. Distance, when used wisely, fosters healing. It allows emotional wounds to settle. It gives time for clarity, and it prevents repeated harm. By stepping away from negativity, you create room for positive influences, supportive relationships, and constructive experiences. Distance is not always permanent, but it is often necessary for growth and renewal. In the end, silence and distance are not escapes. They are strategies. They are conscious choices made by individuals who understand the value of peace and self-respect. When you learn to respond to negativity with silence and distance, you reclaim your emotional power, you stop reacting to everything, and you start living with intention, strength, and calm. These quiet responses become your shield, your wisdom, and your path toward a life that is no longer controlled by negativity, but guided by inner peace and self-awareness. Acting unbothered is a sign of wisdom, not indifference, because deep reflects understanding of emotions, priorities, and the limits of control. Many people assume that someone who remains calm in difficult situations does not care, but in reality, acting unbothered often comes from caring too deeply about peace. clarity, and self-respect to be dragged into unnecessary conflict. It is Unbothered is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of awareness that guides such behavior. When a person reacts to every comment, criticism, or misunderstanding, they become emotionally exhausted. Each reaction drains energy and pulls attention away from what truly matters. Acting unbothered means choosing not to give power to every external stimulus. Unbothered. It is the ability to recognize that not every opinion deserves a response, and not every situation requires emotional investment. This choice reflects wisdom because it is grounded in discernment rather than impulsiveness. Indifference, on the other hand, is rooted in apathy. It implies a lack of concern, empathy, or connection. Acting unbothered is different. It involves feeling emotions, understanding their impact, and then consciously deciding how much space they deserve in your life. A wise person does not deny their feelings, but they do not allow those feelings to dictate their actions. They understand that emotional control is a form of power, and that power is best exercised with restraint. Wisdom also comes from experience. Over time, people learn that constant reaction rarely leads to meaningful change. The arguments often repeat themselves, misunderstandings persist, and explanations are frequently ignored. Acting unbothered becomes a protective mechanism, not to shut others out, but to preserve inner stability. It is the realization that peace is more valuable than proving a point. And that silence can sometimes communicate more than words. When someone acts unbothered, they are often setting boundaries without confrontation. They are quietly refusing to participate in drama, gossip, or emotional manipulation. This quiet refusal requires courage. It is easier to react than to remain composed. It is easier to argue than to walk away. Choosing calm over chaos demonstrates a level of maturity that is rooted in self-awareness and confidence. Acting unbothered also nurtures self-respect. When you stop reacting to everything, you affirm that your worth is not dependent on external validation. You do not need to defend your identity or justify your choices to everyone. This does not mean you ignore important issues or tolerate injustice, but it means you choose your battles wisely. Wisdom lies in knowing which struggles deserve your energy and which do not. Furthermore, acting unbothered influences relationships. It encourages healthier communication because reduces emotional volatility. When you respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively, conversations become more constructive. Others learn that manipulation and provocation will not work, and they are more likely to approach you with honesty and respect. In this way, acting unbothered becomes a silent teacher, shaping the dynamics of interaction without force. There is also a deeper emotional freedom in acting unbothered. It allows you to detach from negativity without losing compassion. You can care without being consumed, understand without being overwhelmed, and empathize without sacrificing your peace. This balance is a hallmark of wisdom. It reflects the ability to remain connected to others while remaining anchored in yourself. In the end, acting unbothered is not about ignoring life's challenges or dismissing others' feelings. It is about responding with intention rather than instinct. It is about valuing peace over pride and clarity over chaos. When you act unbothered, you are not showing that nothing matters to you, but that you have learned what truly matters and what does not. This understanding is the essence of wisdom, and it transforms emotional restraint into a powerful expression of inner strength and self-mastery. Mastering emotions leads to confidence, clarity, and inner freedom, because when you understand and guide your emotional world instead of being controlled by it, you begin to experience life with greater balance and purpose. Emotions are powerful forces that shape thoughts, decisions, relationships, and self-perception. 136,000 when they remain unmanaged, they can create confusion, fear, and impulsive actions. But when they are mastered with awareness and patience, they become sources of strength rather than obstacles. Confidence grows when you realize that your reactions do not have to define you. 36,000. Many people feel insecure because they are constantly overwhelmed by their emotions. They react quickly to criticism, feel crushed by disappointment, or become anxious over uncertainty. Mastering emotions allows you to pause, observe what you feel, and choose how to respond. This ability builds trust in yourself. You begin to believe in your capacity to handle challenges with calm and dignity. Confidence then emerges not from perfection, but from the knowledge that you can navigate emotional storms without losing control. Clarity develops when emotions are understood rather than suppressed. Suppressing emotions creates inner tension, while understanding them brings insight. When you examine why you feel anger, sadness, jealousy, or fear, you uncover deeper truths about your needs, values, and boundaries. This awareness helps you make wiser decisions. Instead of acting based on temporary feelings, you act based on thoughtful understanding. Clarity allows you to see situations as yours. They are not your emotions, distort them to be. It helps you separate facts from assumptions and reality from imagination. Inner freedom is perhaps the greatest reward of mastering emotions. When you are no longer enslaved by every emotional impulse, you experience a sense of liberation. You stop being controlled by others' words, past memories, or future worries. Emotional mastery allows you to detach from unnecessary negativity while remaining connected to meaningful experiences. You learn that you can feel deeply without being destroyed by your feelings. This freedom is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of control and balance. Mastering emotions, those also transforms relationships. When you understand your own emotions, you become more empathetic toward others. You listen with patience rather than reacting defensively. You express your feelings honestly without hurting others. This emotional maturity creates healthier connections built on respect and understanding. Instead of conflicts escalating into arguments, they become opportunities for growth and communication. Emotional mastery turns relationships into spaces of trust rather than battlegrounds of ego. The journey toward emotional mastery is not instant. It requires self-reflection, discipline, and courage. There will be moments when emotions feel overwhelming and mistakes will happen. But each moment of awareness, each pause before reacting, and each attempt to understand your feelings brings you closer to mastery. It is a gradual process of learning to sit with emotions instead of fighting them, to understand them instead of denying them, and to guide them instead of being driven by them. Emotional mastery also reshapes how you view challenges. Instead of seeing difficulties as threats, you begin to see them as lessons. Fear becomes a signal for growth. Anger becomes a call for boundaries. And sadness becomes a reminder of what truly matters. SelfGrowth. When emotions are mastered, they stop being enemies and start becoming guides. This shift in perspective strengthens resilience and deepens wisdom. In the end, mastering emotions is not about becoming cold or detached. It is about becoming conscious and balanced. It is about knowing when to feel, when to pause, and when to act. As confidence rises, clarity sharpens, and inner freedom expands, life becomes less chaotic and more meaningful. When you master your emotions, you do not lose your humanity. You discover your true power, and that power allows you to live with confidence, understanding, and a profound sense of inner freedom that no external circumstance can take away. In conclusion, emotional strength is not about pretending that nothing affects you, but about understanding yourself so deeply that nothing unnecessary controls you. SelfGrowth. When you learn to manage reactions, set boundaries, choose silence over conflict, act unbothered with wisdom, and master your emotions with awareness, you begin to rise above chaos and confusion. Confidence grows when you trust your inner stability. Clarity emerges when you see beyond temporary feelings. And inner freedom appears when you no longer allow external forces to dictate your peace. This journey is not about becoming distant or cold, but about becoming conscious, grounded, and powerful. When you act as if nothing bothers you, you are not ignoring life. You are mastering it. And in that mastery, you discover a strength that is calm, resilient, and unshakable.